Have you ever been confused about what an estate plan is, thinking, I'm not going to die today, so why do I need an estate plan? Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to demystify trust and estates. My name is Luke Turner, co founder of Moment Private Wealth, where we help athletes and entrepreneurs get smarter with their money. Today's topic is going to be estate planning, where we're going to cover one, what is an estate plan? And then secondly, we're going to cover the 5 core components to any great estate plan. So let's dive right in. First, what is an estate plan? So there's a lot of misconceptions out there around what an estate plan is. There's people telling you that you can get some special tax benefit by special trusts, that you can get liability protection by having assets in trust. And some of these things are true. But really, when we boil it down to the most simple components to what is an estate plan, it's giving direction to the following things. 1, where do you want your assets to go? 2, who do you want to take care of your children? 3, who do you want to make decisions for you if you can't make those decisions today? So when we think about estate planning, we really need to simplify it down to it's a written document where you can, in advance, outline what you want to happen with both assets that you own and people that you love. So now that you have a better understanding and a simpler version of what an estate plan actually is, let's talk about the 5 core components. So the first component to any great estate plan is a revocable living trust. So all a revocable living trust is a way for you to outline in advance what you want to happen to the assets that you own that have a physical title. Think about things like your investment accounts, think about your house, think about your cars, anything that has that physical title. The reason why we typically see clients utilizing revocable living trusts versus traditional beneficiaries, there's a couple of reasons. The first main reason is it allows to give clear direction to how those assets can be used in the future. So let's look at a real life example. Say I have $5 million that's sitting in my investment account, and the beneficiary is my 20-year-old son. Well, if I were to pass away, that $5 million is going to go directly to my son. And he is going to have complete reign to use it however he would like. If he wanted to go out and buy a Ferrari, he could go buy a Ferrari. If he wanted to go buy a $2 million house, he'd go buy a $2 million house. If you have a revocable living trust set up, you can just set more parameters around how that money can be used. You could say that he doesn't have access to the money until he's 30. You could put a co-trustee on it, which would allow him to make decisions with somebody else having to approve them. There's all these different parameters you can put in place in a trust that you can't put in place for a beneficiary. The second reason that we always want to make sure that we are looking at potentially having a revocable living trust is it allows us to have, I'll call it the nuclear plan. So when you think about a beneficiary, the way a beneficiary operates is that if you were to pass away, it goes directly to that beneficiary. Well, a lot of people don't realize that if you pass away and your beneficiary passed away at the same time, say you guys are in a car accident and something happens to both of you at the exact same time, those assets are going to go to what's called the probate process. What the probate process is what I call the government's plan. It's a plan that's completely public. Anybody can show up to the courthouse and lay claim to your assets. Creditors can show up and say that you owe them money. And a trust completely avoids that probate process. It keeps all your information private. And for a lot of clients that we work with, that's really important to them, making sure that all their information stays very private and concealed. If you do not have a trust in place and this happens and you end up going to the probate process, all that information will become public. So that's another big reason why we see that revocable living trust being one of the main core components to any great estate plan. The second thing that we look at when we look at estate planning is going to be powers of attorney. So a power of attorney is a way for you to give a clear outline to somebody in advance for how you want your financial affairs or your healthcare affairs to be handled. The reason why we typically look to have this set up is that, again, if you don't have it set up, you're going to get the government's plan. So let's use a real life example. I'm driving down the street, I get in a car accident, they take me to the hospital, and I can't make a healthcare decision for myself. Well, what's going to happen is the nurse or the doctor is going to ask you, or the person that's there alongside you, does he have a power of attorney in place for healthcare directive? The answer is yes. You're going to look at what that document says, and whoever's on that document is then going to make the healthcare decisions on your behalf. If you don't have that in place, you're going to get the government's plan. And the government's plan is going to be that they're going to go to a judge, and the judge is going to then select the person that they deem fit to make those healthcare decisions for you. Same thing is going to happen on the financial side. If you have that financial power of attorney in place, then you can have somebody make those financial decisions for you in the future. One thing I would add on the financial power of attorney is that I think is really important that a lot of people don't realize or miss in their estate plan is that financial power of attorneys can either be put in place today or they could be called springing powers of attorney. Typically, what we see is that folks should have springing powers of attorney in place, meaning that they spring into place if an event happens. For example, if I become incapacitated and I can't make a financial decision for myself, then you have springing power of attorney where that person now can make financial decisions for me at that point in time. Versus if you have a traditional power of attorney in place for financial directives, that person can make decisions today. They could call up your investment manager and they could request money. And legally, that person would have to send them money if they had a financial power of attorney in place that was active and didn't have that springing component in there. So just one thing to think about inside of that financial power of attorney. So that's the second piece. The third piece is your pour over will. So a pour over will is for all the things that you own that do not have a title. So again, the revocable living trust we just talked about is for things that have a title. Now let's talk about the things that don't have a title. You walk around your house, look on the walls, you have pieces of art, look on your hands, you probably have a wedding ring on your hand. Think about anything that you own that either has sentimental or monetary value that you want to give direction to that doesn't have a title. And the way a pour over will works is it actually will pour all of those assets into your trust if something were to happen to you. And again, the reason why this is important is that one, it allows you to give clear direction in advance. And two, it's going to completely avoid that probate process. We hear stories all the times about families that get in arguments because of something that's in somebody's house and there was no pour over will put in place. And the family wants to fight over who's going to get X, Y, and Z piece of jewelry. Whereas if you have that pour over will in place, you can give clear direction to it to avoid any potential arguments or tiffs in the future. So now that we know about the third thing, the pour over will, let's talk about guardianship. If you're listening to this video, you probably fall into one of these three buckets. You either have kids, you either want to have kids, or you know somebody who has kids. And if you fall into any of those three buckets, you've probably seen the joy and care that a parent has for their child. One thing that's very important in core estate planning documents is to make sure that you give clear direction to who's going to take care of those children, how they're going to get taken care of, and what those circumstances are going to look like in order for that guardianship to kick in. So for us, when we think about guardianship, typically this is put into the will of core estate plans, and it's able to outline who exactly and what exactly they're going to be able to do with your children. This is really important, not only for who's going to take care of them, but how they're going to take care of them. Specifically, if you have assets, making sure that there's clear direction for that individual that's now taking care of your kids. How can they use the assets that you have? What should they be thinking about when, if they end up taking care of their kids? You want them to go to the same private school that you're sending them to today. Where's that cost going to come out of? All these different components, making sure that we're thinking about them in advance. So that way it avoids any potential problems in the future or arguments in the future. Any great plan is always written down in advance. So that way we don't get into the situation that there are those fights or arguments or confusions when something happens. Now we know with the fourth area of guardianship, let's talk about estate taxes. So every financial decision that you make is going to have a tax consequence. And there are a lot of misconceptions around there about estate taxes. So for those of you that don't know, there is unfortunately a tax that is on you if you die. First, the good news. The good news is that in 2024, the number is just over $13 million. And if you have under $13 million of net worth, you do not have to pay this tax. So if you have under $13 million, you can stop watching this video because this is the fifth area. If you have over $13 million in net worth, you should keep watching. So first, what is net worth? So the way the government looks at net worth is you're going to add up all the things that you own: real estate, the value of your business, investment accounts, bank accounts. Death benefit of life insurance is another thing to include in this as well. Although it's tax-free from an income perspective, any death benefit does go into your estate from a net worth perspective. So make sure to add that in there. And then you need to subtract out all the liabilities that you have. Maybe a mortgage that's on your house or debt that's on real estate that you own. When you sum those two numbers together, If it's over that 13 million figure, you are going to have an estate tax issue. What is estate taxes? Estate taxes is just it's approximately a 40% tax that's going to get imposed on you if you're over 13 million. Thankfully, there are some strategies that we can implement in order to either reduce or eliminate estate tax in the future. We don't have time to dive into those strategies today, but what I will tell you is that the simplest strategy that you can implement is to get married. Because if you do get married and there's two of you, that $13 million exemption gets doubled. And it can go from 13 million all the way up to it's about 27 million with the two of you guys combined together. So that is my simplest tip for estate taxes. Again, we don't have time to dive into the details today, but it is something that you should be considering. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. To wrap up, what we've covered in this video today is 1, what is an estate plan? And then 2, those 5 core areas to estate planning: having a revocable living trust, having a pour over will, having those powers of attorney, guardianship, and estate taxes. If you have any more questions about estate planning, please feel free to reach out at the link below. Subscribe also on the channel and follow us for more content on how to get smarter with your money.